Revolutionary greetings, comrades. In this second episode of Sudan, we are looking into post-independence. In the first episode, we dealt with the historical background before independence, and we did say that we are using notes prepared by our commissar, Comrade Ian Bidos. Sudan gained independence on the 1st of January 1956 under the transitional constitution adopted. The Governor General was replaced not by a president but by a 5-member Supreme Commission, with the head of government being the Prime Minister. The language of administration in Sudan was Arabic, but administrators in the south had been trained in English. In 1953, the British administrators began to leave, giving posts of Sudanese to Sudanese, but of 800 positions, only 4 were given to Southerners. The first Prime Minister of the Republic of Sudan was Ismail al-Zari. He came from the Sufi Muslim Katmaya sect and had no time for the Christians in the south who had hoped for a federal system. Civil war broke out in August 1955 when it was realized that the interests of the south were not going to be considered. This, the first Sudanese civil war, would continue until 1972. Squabbling among political factions and the weak governance prompted the first military coup in Sudan in 1958. The two generals who led the coup, Ibrahim Aboud and Ahmed Abdi al-Wahab, belonged to the Katmiya and Asina Sufi sects respectively. The Supreme Council of the Armed Forces with Aboud at its head would govern Sudan until 1964. During this period, the Sudanese Communist Party, founded in 1946, played a significant role as a disciplined force of the workers, peasants, and the revolutionary intelligentsia, as it still does today. In the first episode, we opened with a quote from the press statement issued by the Communist Party of Sudan. About showed as little respect and understanding of the people of the South as his predecessor, Azhari. His government suppressed expressions of religious and cultural differences and supported attempts to Arabize and Islamicize the South. From 1963, the armed struggle against the government, which had started in 1955, was intensified. In October 1964, a seminar on southern Sudan held at the University of Khartoum was viciously attacked by police, with 3 people being killed. Anger with military rule boiled over, and Aboud was forced to resign the following month. My apologies, I know I'm not pronouncing the names correctly. You will have to bear with me. There was a return to the 1956 transitional constitution and an interim government formed under the leadership of educator Siye al-Khatim al-Khalifa as prime minister. The general election of 1965 was only ushered the general election of 1965 only ushered in a period of confusion as the electorate voted along ethnic or religious lines. There was an attempt to ban the Sudanese Communist Party, and Islamic elements refused to recognize the rights of non-Muslims in the south. A succession of weak governments led to another military coup in 1969. In summary, what we're seeing, it's a pattern that is unique in most African countries, where we vote along ethnic lines, in some cases along religious lines. That causes division and defeats the unity of the working class. It is common in Zimbabwe, for instance, that political leaders mobilize along ethnic lines. We will do a video where I wrote an article some time back, I think it was 2018 or so, where in the article I said that tribalism is a tool used by the political leaders to attain political power. It exists in the opposition, it exists in the ruling party. Nimer and the Democratic Republic of Sudan. On the 25th of May 1969, young officers calling themselves the Free Officers of Movement seized power in Sudan. They were led by Colonel Jaffa Nimeri. He justified the coup, not unreasonable, on the ground that civilian politicians had paralyzed the decision-making process. He had failed to deal with the country's economic and regional problems, and had left Sudan without a permanent constitution. The coup leaders, joined by Babika Awadala, the former Chief Justice, constituted themselves as the 10-member Revolutionary Command Council under Nimeri's chairmanship. The RCC, that is the Revolutionary Command Council, proclaimed the establishment of the Democratic Republic of Sudan, dedicated to advancing Sudanese socialism. The following year, a new national flag was adopted in traditional Arab revolutionary nationalistic colors of black, green, red, and white. The reason why I'm saying Sudanese socialism, you will know if you read Kwame Nkrumah in 1967, he criticized the concept of African socialism as opposed to scientific socialism. In African Socialism Revisited. And A.M. Babu of Tanzania also dealt with this in more detail in 1981 in his work African Socialism or Socialist Africa. Both argue that only scientific socialism can save Africa from neo-colonial domination. If you read the literature by the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we did produce a letter which was written by A.M. Babu to Prime Minister Robert Mugabe soon after independence in 1980. Please visit one of our theoretical journal to get that letter. The RCC immediately suspended the transitional constitution of 1956 and banned political parties. The RCC also nationalized many industries, businesses, and banks. Furthermore, Nimeri ordered the arrest of 63 civilian politicians and forcibly retired senior army officers. Awadala was appointed as prime minister in order to dispel the notion that the coup had installed a military dictatorship. He presided over a 21-member cabinet that included only 3 officers from the RCC, among them its chairman, Nimeri, who became Prime Minister of Defense. The other 2 military members of the cabinet held the portfolios for internal security and communications. 9 members of the Awadala cabinet are believed to have been members of the Sudanese Communist Party, including one of the 2 Southerners in the cabinet, John Garang, Minister of Supply and the later Minister for Southern Affairs. Garang was to play a major role in future Sudanese politics. The communists played a significant role in shaping government policies and programs. Awadala clashed with Nimeri in November 1969 after he had claimed that the new government would not survive without assistance from the socialist countries. Nimeri then became prime minister. Awadala retained his position as RCC, that is the Revolutionary Council, deputy chairman, and remained in the government as foreign minister. Conservative forces led by the Ansar posed the greatest threat to the RCC. Imam al-Hadi al-Mahid had withdrawn to his Upper Island stronghold in the Nile, near Khartoum. The Imam had demanded a return to democratic government, the exclusion of communists from power, and an end to RCC rule. In March 1970, Hostile Ansar crowds prevented Nyerere from visiting the island for talks with the Imam. Fighting erupted between government forces and the Ansar. When the Ansar ignored an ultimatum to surrender, army units with air support assaulted Upper Island. The Imam was killed while trying to cross to Ethiopia. Soon after the army had crushed the Ansar at Upper Island, Nyerere moved against the Southern Sudanese Communist Party. He ordered the deportation of Sudanese Communist Party General Secretary Abdi al-Khalik Majub. When Majub returned illegal after some months abroad, he was placed under house arrest. In March 1971, Nyerere indicated that trade unions would be placed under government control. The RCC also banned communist-led student, women's and professional organizations. Nyerere then announced the planned formation of a national political movement called the Sudan Socialist Union (SSU), which would assume control of all political parties, including the Sudanese Communist Party (SCP). After this speech, the government arrested the SCP Central Committee and other leading communists. The SCP, however, retained strong covert organization. Before further action could be taken against the party on the 19th July 1971, the SCP launched a coup. Nyerere and RCC, together with a number of pro-Nyerere officers, were arrested while meeting at the presidential palace. A 7-member revolutionary council led by Major Hisham al-Atta was formed. 3 days after the coup, however, loyal army units stormed the palace, rescued Nyerere, and arrested Atta and others. Nyerere ordered the arrest of hundreds of communist and dissident military officers, some of whom, including Atta, were executed. Nyerere reaffirmed his commitment to establishing a socialist state. A provisional constitution published in August 1971 described Sudan as a socialist democracy and provided for a presidential form of government to replace the RCC. A plebiscite the following month elected Nyerere to a 6th term as president. The Southern Armed Resistance, known as the Anyanya, controlled much of the southern countryside, while government forces occupied the region's major towns. In 1971, Joseph Lang, who had become the leader of southern forces opposed to Khartoum, proclaimed the creation of the Southern Sudan Liberation Movement, SSLM. Anyanya leaders united behind him, and nearly all exiled southern politicians supported the SSLM. Nyerere remained committed to ending the southern insurgents. He believed he could stop the fighting by granting regional self-government and undertaking economic development in the south. By October 1971, Khartoum had established contact with the SSLM. A conference between SSLM and Sudanese government delegations convened at Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in February 1972. The Addis Ababa Accords granted autonomy for the southern region, composed of the 3 provinces of Equatorial, present-day Al-Istiwa, Bahr al-Ghazal, and Upper Nile, present-day Al-Nil, with a regional president leading a high executive council and an elected Southern Regional Assembly. National government would be responsible for defense, foreign affairs, currency and finance, economic, social planning. The accords also recognized Arabic as Sudanese official language and English as the Southern's principal language, which would be used in administration and would be taught in the schools. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire, and amnesty was announced retroactive to 1955, allowing exiles to return. The 2 sides signed the Addis Ababa Agreement on 27 March 1972, which was thereafter celebrated as National Unity Day. We will continue with these notes in the 3rd episode. We are trying not to record long videos. I'm noticing it is going to about 15 minutes. I know comrades are struggling with the Wi-Fi or data to follow. Please like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and please circulate. Amandla, comrades.